This is Miss Humbert here, and today we're going to be doing Unit 9, Note 7. So we're going to be talking about synthetic division with polynomials. So what is synthetic division? Well, synthetic division is a way of doing division, but with it's a way of doing long division, but with a little bit of a simpler method. Now, here is the thing we need to remember. Okay, so you can only use synthetic division when your divisor has the largest term being 1x to the first. So when we take a look, you'll notice that this has a coefficient of 1. If there's no coefficient out in front, then the coefficient is 1. So if that coefficient is anything other than 1, if it's 2, if it's 6, if it's 8, then we cannot use synthetic division. It also has to only be to the first power. Now we're going to be making a box, and in that box you're going to put the opposite of the divisor, and just like with long division, you're going to put the remainder out over the divisor. So let's take a look at what this would look like. So what you're going to do when you do this is first you're going to take a look at your divisor. So I have x plus 3. So I'm going to make a box, and in my box I'm going to do the opposite of my constant. So since my constant is a positive 3, I'm going to do a negative 3. And then I have a positive 1, a positive 5, and a positive 6. So I took the x's out completely and I just wrote down my coefficients and constants. So this is how you set up synthetic division. Then I'm going to take the 1 and I'm going to drop it down. So the 1 gets dropped down to there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the number that I have down here and multiply it by the number up there. So 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. 5 plus negative 3 is 2. I'm going to repeat that same thing. I'm going to take 2 and multiply it by our negative 3. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Now that adds to 0. This last term is our remainder, which means that this is our constant and this is our x term. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug that back in. So since this is our x term, it's going to be 1x, then this is going to be plus 2. Since our remainder is 0, we don't even have to write out a remainder. So our answer then is just x plus 2 for number 1. Let's take a look at number 2. So again, we're going to take a look at our constant of our divisor, and we're going to do the opposite of it in our little box. And then I'm going to write out the coefficient of each of these terms. So I have 1, 9, and 20. So 1, 9, and 20. And now I'm going to do synthetic division. So I'm going to drop that 1 down to start off with. 1 times negative 5 is negative 5. 9 plus negative 5, so now we're adding. So when you do the columns, you add. 9 plus negative 5 is going to be 4. And then you're going to take 4 times, so now we're going to multiply bottom to top. 4 times negative 5 is negative 20, and now we're going to add down the columns and get 0. So remember that this is your remainder, this is your constant, and this is your x term. So we have 1x plus 4, and since our remainder is 0, we don't have to write anything. So then the answer is x plus 4 for number 2. All right, let's take a look at number 3. Again, we want to do the opposite of our constant. So since it's a negative 3, I'm putting a positive 3 in that box. Then I have 1, and I have 4, and I have negative 22. So now let's go ahead and let's solve this out. So we're taking this 1 and we're dropping it down. Now I'm going to take 1 times the 3, which is 3. Now I'm going to add down the columns. 4 plus 3 is 7. So again, this process is doing the same thing as as long division. It's just a little bit of a simpler method, but it only works when the divisor has a coefficient of 1. So now we're going to do 7 times 3, which is 21. Negative 21, or 22 plus 21 is negative 1. So again, this is our remainder, our constant, and our x term. So I'm going to have 1x plus 7 minus 1, and since it's the remainder, I need to divide it by my original divisor, which is x minus 3. Now, whenever you have 1x, you don't have to write that 1. So I have x plus 7 minus 1 over x minus 3. So that's your final answer for number 3. Let's take a look at number 4. So for number 4, we have x plus 3, and we want to do the opposite. Okay, so the opposite of a positive 3 is a negative 3. So that's going to go in our box. So we have 1, we have 7, and we have 12. So let's go ahead and let's do synthetic division. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop that 1 down. So now I'm going to take 1 times negative 3, which is negative 3. Negative 3 plus 7 is going to give me 4. And then now I'm going to multiply again. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. And then again, I'm adding down the column. So then I have x plus 4. And remember that my remainder is 0. So then that is my final answer. All right, let's take a look at this next one. So even though it's a cube terms, it's still going to be the same thing. So we're going to have a negative 3 in our box. So we're going to put a negative 3 in the box, and then we have 2, and then 3, and then negative 4, and then 15. So let's go ahead and let's drop it. So we're going to drop the 2 down. So then now we're going to multiply 2 times negative 3, which is negative 6. 3 plus negative 6 is negative 3. Negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. Negative 4 plus 9 is going to give me 5. Again, adding down the columns and then multiplying to the corner. 5 times negative 3 is going to give me negative 15. Add down the columns and you get 0. So my remainder is 0. Here's my constant, here's my x, and then here is my x squared term. So when we have 3, now we're going to add an x squared term. So what I'm going to have is 2x squared minus 3x plus 5. And there is no remainder, so I don't need to write that over anything. So then next, let's take a look at this next one. So again, I'm going to put the opposite in the corner, and then my coefficients, 3, 4, negative 2, negative 1. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the 3 down. So 3 times negative 4 is going to give me negative 12. Now I'm adding down the columns. 4 plus a negative 12 is going to give me a negative 8. Negative 8 times a negative 4 is going to give me a positive 32 when you multiply two negatives. Negative 2 plus 30 is going to give you a positive 30. 30 times a negative 4 is going to give you a negative 121. So then, or negative 120, you add those together and you get negative 121. So this is my remainder, my constant, my x, and my x squared. So now we can go ahead and write that out as my coefficient. So I have 3x squared minus 8x plus 30, then minus my remainder of 121, and I subtracted it because it's negative, over my original divider, which is x plus 4. So that's my final answer for number 6. Let's take a look at number 7. So again, we're going to put a minus 2 in here. Now I notice that there's no x squared term. I jump from x cubed to just x. Hold on one sec. Lost my place here. So then we have 6, 15. Now I'm going to put 0 in the place of my x squared. So because there's no x squared, I'm going to put 0 there. And then 28 and negative 6. And now I'm ready to do synthetic division. So I can take this 6 and drop it down. 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. Okay, 15 plus negative 12 is 3. So then 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. So we have to have that 0 column to take place of the x squared that isn't there. So then that's going to give me negative 6. Negative 6 times negative 2 is 12. 28 plus 12 is going to give me 40. And 40 times 2 is 80. So then 80 minus 6 is going to give me 74. So there's my remainder, my constant, my x term, my x squared term, and my x cubed term. So I have 6x cubed plus 3x squared minus 6x plus 40, and that's going to be 74 divided by my original, which is x plus 2. So let's take a look at number 8. Again, there's no x to the fourth term, so I'm going to have to leave a placeholder for that. So I have 2, and then I need to put a 0 in for my x to the fourth, then negative 1, and then 3, and then negative 2, and then 7. So if you ever skip an exponent, you need to put a 0 in for its place. So we're going to take the 2 and drop it down. 2 times 3 is 6. 0 plus 6 is 6. 6 times 3 is 18. Negative 1 plus 18 is 17. Then 17 times 3 is 51. 3 plus 51 is 54. 54 times 3 is 162. Subtract 2, you get 160. Ooh, I ran out of space. 160 times, I'm just going to jot it down here, so that's my 7 row. 160 times 3 is 486. And then you add 7 and you get 493. So let's go ahead and let's write all that crazy stuff out. So this is our remainder, our constant, our x term, our x squared term, our x cubed term, and finally our x to the fourth term. So I have 2x to the fourth plus 6x cubed plus 17x squared plus 54x plus 160. And then my remainder is 493. So I take that 493 and I need to divide it by my divisor, which was x minus 3. All right, let's take a look at these last two word problems. So the area of a rectangle is that amount of square inches, okay? That x cubed plus 3x squared plus 4x plus 1. With a width of x plus 1, what is the length? So to get the area of a rectangle, it's simply length times width, right? Well, we know the area is this, and the width is this. So in order to get the length, we need to take the area and divide it by the width. So that's what we're going to do. So we're basically going to have x cubed plus 3x squared plus 4x plus 1 divided by x plus 1. So let's use some synthetic division to do that. So we have 1, 3, 4, and 1. And we're not switching anything around, so we're good to go here. So then what we want to do is we want to go ahead first and drop the 1 down. So 1 times a negative 1 is a negative 1. 3 plus a negative 1 is going to be 2. 2 times a negative 1 is going to be a negative 2. 4 plus a negative 2 is 2. 2 times a negative 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. So then when we write that out, we end up getting, here's our remainder, our constant, our x, and our x squared. So we end up getting x squared plus 2x plus 2 minus 1 over my remainder, so my divisor was x plus 1. So that's going to be the area for the length, and I noticed that it is in inches, so I'm going to write inches on there. So let's go ahead and let's take a look. For the area of a triangle, you're going to do 1/2 base times height. So what we need to do is we need to figure out the area of the triangular sail. So in order to do that, we know the area, and so in order to get the height or the base of this length of the sail, what we need to do is we need to multiply the area by 2. That'll get rid of the 1/2 and then divide it by h. So let's go ahead and let's take this area and multiply it by 2. So we're going to do 16 times 2, which is 32x to the fourth, minus 120x cubed, minus 28 times 2. So I'm multiplying all of these by 2 so I can get rid of that 1/2. So that's 56x, and 56 times 2 is going to give me 112, that's x squared, minus 32 times 2, which is 64. So that's when I multiply it by 2, and I'm going to be dividing that by x minus 4. So I'm going to put 4 in my little box. Then I have 32, negative 120, negative 56, 112, and negative 64. So now I can go ahead and use synthetic division. So I'm first going to drop down that 32. And 32 times 4 is going to give me a positive 128. Negative 120 plus 128 is going to give me 8. 8 times 4 is 32. Negative 56 plus 32 gives me negative 24. Multiply that times 4, and here you get negative 96. 112 plus a negative 96 is 16. 16 times 4 is a positive 64, so that breaks down to 0. So our remainder is going to be 0. And then this is our constant, our x squared, and our x cubed. So we have 32x cubed plus 8x squared minus 24x plus 16. So that's our final answer, and our label is going to be meters. So that concludes your note video for today. Please make sure you take the Schoology quiz once you're done. Thanks for listening.